You've been there. A crushing bad beat, a mistake that you can't shake off, and that horrible feeling of not knowing when your next winning session is going to come. The weight of these moments can be unbearable at times, and poker breaks down a lot of really good players. But what if I told you there's a way to not just survive these moments, but to thrive because of them? Today, we're going to talk about the skill of resilience and how it's a key skill for dealing with all the challenges that poker throws your way. Now, before we get started, if you'd like to know exactly where you might have a leak in your mental game, I put together a free assessment for you, which will tell you which skill you personally need to work on to take your game to the next level. You'll find that link in the description below. Now let's dive in. As you know, playing a game of incomplete information where uncertainty is high and mistakes are guaranteed is not easy. Add to that the fact that you're playing against other people, often for a significant amount of money, and the performance pressures go through the roof. So how do you deal with so many things being out of your control? How do you handle the fact poker often feels very unfair and you can't win no matter what you do? How do you cope with the fact you make mistakes and it could cost you significant amounts of money or make you feel stupid? How do you respond to an aggressive opponent when it feels like he's pushing you around and trying to steal your chips and your money? It's tough. And without the right mindset, poker slowly chips away at you, grinds you down until your resolve is almost gone. Unfortunately, most poker players are ill-prepared for the onslaught that awaits them at the tables. Poker slowly chips away at them piece by piece until they either break down or blow up. This is exactly what happened to me when I started playing poker professionally. I vividly remember getting on a one-way flight to Thailand, full of adrenaline, ready to start the next new exciting chapter with the poker dream very much alive. But with the thrill also came a lot of pressure. Soon I was in Thailand, I had bills to pay, I had expectations mounting, and every loss and bad day's results seemed to get harder and harder to take. One bad day would lead to some self-doubt about my game, a few bad days, and I started to question if poker was the right path for me and if I was going to have to end the poker dream early. And each grinding session was really intense. I remember my emotions were up and down like a roller coaster, fully dependent on how my results were going that session. I was so attached to if I won or lost because it felt like it was all on the line. Everything mattered. And I'd often push through this for many days, this feeling of uncertainty and just go through the emotions, so to speak. But then every now and again, every 2 or 3 weeks, I'd hit a wall. I'd completely break down. I couldn't get myself to play. The game that I loved, all the excitement, all the enthusiasm that I initially had for poker was gone. And I just hit a wall and I just couldn't get myself motivated to sit down and play. I'd take a few days off to recharge myself, then hope to come back and push again. What I didn't realize at the time was I didn't have much resilience. I was actually very fragile. I didn't have the frameworks or coping strategies to deal with what poker was thrown at me. What I lacked was resilience, a mental armor against poker's relentless blows. It took me a number of years to learn the mental skills and build a mindset that was able to deal with the unique challenges of poker. Today, I want you to skip the years of pain that I went through, and I want to teach you how to cultivate resilience so you can handle anything that poker throws your way. Now, to get us started, I want to lay out a framework that I learned from Nassim Taleb, who is an author of the book Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. What he did was he observed lots of systems, and he realized that they respond to stress and adversity in one of 3 ways. At one end of the spectrum, you have things that are fragile. These are systems and objects that crumble under stress and uncertainty. Think of a glass as an example of something that's fragile. If we pick up a glass and we drop it onto a hard surface, it's most likely going to smash. It's not very durable, it's fragile. Then in the middle, you have things that are robust. These are sturdy, strong, and they are durable in the face of adversity and uncertainty. So think of a safe, a steel safe. You can beat it with a hammer, you can try to break into it. It's rock solid and it's not going to break very easily. It stays static and stays solid no matter what you do to it. Then there are things that are anti-fragile. These things don't just survive through stress, they thrive on it. They get stronger because of it. The more turbulence, the more uncertainty, the more stress you put them through, the stronger they become. Challenges become growth that make them stronger. For this example, think of a muscle in the human body. You go to the gym, you break that muscle down with heavy weights, you leave the gym and that muscle is actually broken down. But after a few days or a few weeks, good recovery, good nutrition, and that muscle not only returns to its baseline state, it gets stronger because of it. Another example of antifragile would be economies. Economies have lots of ups and downs, but generally they withstand validity and they get stronger because of the stress you place on them. Now, we can apply these concepts to the human mind, and you can learn to actually become more resilient in the face of uncertainty and to ultimately become anti-fragile, to get stronger from every challenge and stress you face. So let's go on a journey together from fragile to anti-fragile. Let's start with the fragile poker player. Fragile players don't handle adversity very well. They can't handle uncertainty. They don't like being out of their comfort zone. They don't like being in stressful scenarios. This was me early in my poker career. I was very fragile. If things weren't going how I wanted in my external environment, if I was losing, I would get a lot of self-doubt. If I made a mistake, I'd start to blame other people or myself for being an idiot. I just couldn't handle things going badly around me. So in poker terms, fragile players run into a host of problems. Firstly, downswings have a disproportionately negative effect. This is often compounded by the fact they don't have a safety net and they're playing under financial pressure. The end result is performance drops. They also struggle to deal with the uncertainty that comes with poker. Not knowing where the next winning session is going to come from, not knowing if it was a good play or a mistake, really is hard for them to deal with. The end result is their motivation decreases over time. And the fragile player becomes easily overwhelmed. They overcomplicate their strategies, which leads to more mistakes, and they either end up breaking down or needing a break from the game in order to recharge. The end result is their mindset breaks down. Next, we have the robust poker player who can handle things not going their way. During tough times, they're able to put their head down and soldier through. This was me during my Supernova Elite days when I played 3 years in a row of Supernova Elite volume from 2012 to 2015. I was robust. I would soldier through tough times and I would find a way to show up and get my volume in no matter what. So in poker terms, robust players don't really get affected by downswings. Their performance stays quite static or consistent across the board. They can handle all the uncertainty poker throws their way, and their motivation remains stable. And then keep their mind relatively strong through tough periods, so you could say their mindset is somewhat unchanged. All of these are great, and they're a big improvement from the fragile poker player, but there's actually an even better mindset to have, which is that of the anti-fragile poker player. This player can not only handle things not going their way, but they get stronger because of it. They learn from adversity and they grow into a better person and a better poker player because of it. A good example of this, outside the poker context, but I think it's very relevant for this video, is that of David Goggins. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this will be familiar with him, former Navy SEAL, who does a lot of crazy physical challenges, like runs 200-mile ultramarathons, and he's constantly taking on things that basically look impossible, that look like I could not do those. And he goes into these adverse and tough challenges over and over because he knows he's built enough of a mental framework that by stepping into this challenge, not only will I come back a good version of myself, I'll be a stronger, mentally tougher, more resilient, better version of myself because of it. Leaning into adversity, leaning into struggles leads to a better version of myself. So in poker terms, anti-fragile players learn valuable lessons from downswings. As a result, downswings lead their performance to actually increase. They love the uncertainty that comes with poker. The end result is their motivation increases when things get challenging and they need to use their curiosity to solve problems. And the harder things get, the more they build their mindset to deal with future challenges, meaning their mindset is always getting stronger. Now you're probably thinking that's all well and good, but how do you actually become more anti-fragile? The good news is it's a trainable skill, and it all comes down to working on adaptive versus maladaptive responses. Let me explain. We all have to deal with similar triggers. Things happen in our environments that are challenging, that we don't like. We all have to deal with adversity and tough situations. However, how we respond to those triggers, to those situations, can make or break us. Adaptive responses have us growing and moving towards our goals, whereas maladaptive responses break us down and take us away from our goals. So we can think of something as adaptive if it has positive short-term and long-term outcome, is effective for the situation, and allows you to continually perform at your best. On the flip side, something is maladaptive if it has a negative short-term or long-term outcome, is ineffective for the situation, or hinders your performance. Remember, the goal of resilience is to return back to your default state quickly after challenging events. Adaptive coping strategies allow you to do that quickly, whereas maladaptive responses send you spiraling downhill. So let's make this practical and bring it to the poker tables and start thinking about how we can incorporate more adaptive responses to the challenges we face. So the first thing I want you to do is think of a situation that triggers you. This could be making a mistake at the tables. It could be losing to a particular opponent. It could be a suck out and someone hitting a 2-outer on the river. Now I want you to think, how do you react in that situation? First of all, what are some of the thoughts that you're having? What are some of the emotions that you're feeling? And then finally, what do you do? What actions do you take when you're in this compromised state? The third thing to look at is whether your reaction is adaptive and moving you towards your goals, or maladaptive and moving you away from your goals. Are you happy with how you act in those moments? Is it conducive to performing well? If it is, awesome. No work to be done. You can move on to the next triggering event. However, if it's maladaptive, you've got work to do and you move on to step 4. So step 4 is where we can start experimenting with adaptive strategies that are suitable for the situation. We can start to build an anti-fragile mind by consciously choosing more and more adaptive strategies to replace our maladaptive strategies. All right, so here are some that you can try out. First of all, reframing the situation to a positive. Anything that happens has an element of neutrality, an element of negative, and an element of positive. When you're in this fragile, maladaptive mindset, very often everything's negative. Losing, negative. Making a mistake, negative. However, we can learn to reframe situations to a positive by looking for them. So how could you reframe a losing session as a positive? The best players, who are often very anti-fragile, who are adaptive to adversity, they will frame a downswing as the best thing to ever happen to them. They will frame making mistakes as a great session. Why? Because they're tagging on to a part of what happens and they're going to learn a valuable lesson from it. All right, so how can you reframe it? Another adaptive strategy you can try is accepting and moving on. Can you learn just to be okay with what happens? Not trying to fix it, not trying to change it, just being okay with it. Again, this when you're losing, in particular, going through a tough patch of variance, can you just accept that's part of poker? Another adaptive strategy could be releasing some of your emotions by either talking to people or by writing things down. Let's say you're going through a tough session or a tough week of results, speaking to other poker players or speaking to friends, telling them what you're going through and allowing yourself to be okay with that. All right, often emotions, we suppress them, we bottle them up, or we express them in a kind of reactive way. Often if we talk about things or write things down, we can come to terms with our emotions much better, which often is underlying a lot of our maladaptive responses. Another adaptive response is to move the body. I know myself, if I feel stressed, if I feel overwhelmed, if life's getting to me, going for a run, going to the gym, doing some exercise, moving the body becomes a very adaptive way to deal with how I'm feeling physically. All right, all of a sudden you get the endorphins and the chemical release from exercise, but you've also channeled that frustrated energy into a positive outlet. Another adaptive strategy is making plans or problem solving. This is very useful for when you're at the poker tables and you make some mistakes during your session and you tag those hands for later. Once the session's over, you then look at the mistakes you made and go, right, how can I make sure I don't make this mistake again? How can I learn from this? How can I do a study session over the coming days and weeks to make sure that mistake doesn't happen again? All right, so you learn to make a plan from the mistakes or challenges you face. And another adaptive strategy is putting things into perspective. Zooming out. Remind yourself of the bigger lens and going, all right, it's only a losing day. It's only a losing week. How am I doing over the long term? I'm a good winning player. My life's good overall. Lots of things to be grateful for and positive for. Let's put this challenge into perspective. It's not as big as it seems. Now you have to do some experimenting and find the adaptive responses that work for you and the unique situations you find yourself in. But you'll soon realize that you can train yourselves to turn to more and more adaptive responses. And over time, you go from being this fragile person who can't deal with stuff, who breaks down easily, to someone who gets stronger from challenges, who always looks for the positive, who always reframes, who always seeks challenges and gets better and better because of them. Remember, the fragile person and the anti-fragile person, they face the exact same problems. Life is always going to be tough. You're always going to get punched in the face. Someone's always going to hit that 2-outer. However, how you respond to that in that moment, how you choose consciously or unconsciously to respond to that will determine whether that event makes you fragile and breaks you down, or whether you actually become stronger because of it. Now, I want to finish this video with a quote from the book Antifragile. The author says, "Wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. Likewise, with randomness, uncertainty, chaos, you want to use them, not hide from them. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind. It takes work, but day by day, you can start to build a mind that becomes anti-fragile and that gets stronger the more challenges you face." Now, resilience is one of the 8 key poker athlete skills you need for elite poker performance. If you're wanting to know which skill you might need to work on, where you might have leaks in your mental game, I put together a free assessment for you in the description, which will tell you personally which skill will be most beneficial for you to put time and energy into leveling up. All right, guys, you have work to do, so get to work.